Hi everyone, it's Jen, and I'm back with another update on how things are going with GameJam 2021. We have just finished week 3, and as I kind of suspected, I ran into a little bit of an in real life hiccup in my progression as I had my second COVID vaccine shot on Thursday, and it really just wiped me out for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So I probably had one of the worst reactions out of the sampling of maybe 10 people that I know, that I really just couldn't get any work done. I just had a really bad headache. I think like the fever and the what other symptom did I have? Mainly it was fever and a headache and body aches. My shoulder where I got the shot injected, and then pretty much my lower back and whole kind of like upper body was just super sore. Especially my shoulder, but like kind of everywhere else too. That made it really uncomfortable to sit up for any lengthy amount of time. I kind of anticipated that I was going to be out of commission for at least like one day, so I had scheduled the day off with my work, but then I ended up having to take an extra sick day. And then due to like the headache, I really couldn't look at screens or do anything to to open my eyes and like look at things. So that made it a really uncomfortable couple days where I don't like being idle. I guess I was also super tired, so thankfully I was able to be unconscious for most of Friday, which was like the worst day. But in the times that I was conscious, I was very uncomfortable and very bored. But unable to really like look at anything, so taking a warm bath helped make me comfortable. I ended up taking like 3 warm baths just because that's kind of when I felt like the best. And yeah, I ended up just losing out on those 3 days, but I kind of thought I would. I did still make some progress during the beginning of the week when I was feeling better, and Zeil, who I'm working with, I'll leave a link to her tutorials in the description below, that she's been kind of cleaning up my code, that she's been having some time to work on it. So that was really awesome to see, just some of my really kind of like bad and awkward and inefficient code kind of get revamped and beautified. And it was like, it's really interesting to see how something that I've made can be made so much more efficient. So let me show you an example of that. So I had that function that I talked about earlier where I had randomized dialogue for when the active player is changed. So let me go ahead and return to main menu here. I've made these spots where I can test different places. So I had this part where when you switch leader character, it creates like a random dialogue. And so my version of that was like for when the leader is the protagonist, it will do a random roll, and based on what that roll is, then the protagonist will say different things. Now this is going to be awkward to implement later on because I'm planning on eventually having the player be able to choose between a female or a male protagonist. So this protagonist will be a variable, as well as the vassal will also have a choice. So this vassal will be a variable. So I know that this is not going to be a good solution in the long run. And I've told Zeil my plans, and so she was able to go in and make this so much more efficient. So let's look again at my version, which is clunky and not good for when I actually want to implement the player options in the future. And then her version of it being here's like a list or array. I don't know if those are the right terms. I don't have a programming background, but she basically made all the options for like when they speak in a list, and so she's having this leader switch dialog label here where it's going to again pull from. It's going to check the variable to see who the protagonist is, and then it's going to make that random roll, and then it's going to pull a line of this dialogue based on that roll here, and then it's going to do that for the vassal as well. So way better solution than what I had, and is so awesome working with her because it really educates me in a more, how do I put this, like I've taken some I've watched some YouTube tutorials of different programmers working in RenPy talking about how they do things, and each one of them does things differently. And I've watched some entry-level kind of Python courses on like how basic things work, but seeing somebody actually go in and solve my specific problem in a better way is just such a valuable educational experience. It's really unparalleled, and I feel super fortunate to be able to be working with somebody who's willing to basically just show me these better solutions, like, and educate me in real time. Like, it's like getting a private tutor. It's so awesome. And I don't totally understand all of it, and I'm going to be asking her questions, but I kind of like understand the logic behind these things. I wouldn't have come up with syntax like this. I wouldn't have come up with the syntax, although I'm kind of familiar with some of this. I wouldn't have you figured out how to kind of put together these ideas in the syntax that would work. So it's just great. It's fantastic. I'm just super lucky and super fortunate to be having her be willing to work on my project, and I just really appreciate that. So let's see, what did I do this week? Besides lay in bed feeling sorry for myself. I did start working on the actual game last week. I think I talked a little bit about that, where I had the intro made, starting to script the game from the beginning with the dialogue, the prologue, and started with the actual first kind of very entry-level puzzle of the game, where the protagonist is being introduced to the dungeon, and they have the very simple task of just opening this door, which is locked, so then they have to find a key. And you can find out clues. I don't want to make this game super difficult, so I've decided that if the player wants to just kind of have the protagonist tell them what to do, eventually the clues will become more and more specific, that it will be pretty blatant by the third or fourth clue what exactly you're supposed to do. So she's saying interact with the grass, and so I'm going to go ahead and do that here, and then we find a key. So we're going to take that key. Oops, I think that, and here it is, in the inventory, and then we're going to interact with the door. I've got to go and I think get rid of these buttons during certain portions. I think I'm going to hide these buttons. I actually did make a call statement for that, where I'm going to be able to like hide and reveal all those buttons. So that's where I have here, and I've just got to implement that in certain places. Time to move on into the next room. So I've made the second room, and there's a slightly different kind of puzzle in this room. I didn't want to make everything in this game strictly a point and click. So we have this interaction with the book, where then we have this little, I guess you would call it a mini game. I don't want to make any mini games that feel like super out of place, like where suddenly you are, I don't know, trying to rapidly click something, or you know, where it turns into like some type of like a shooter or a platform or anything like that. I want all these puzzles to feel like they kind of fit with like this text adventure, visual novel kind of aesthetic. So I'm probably not going to be making like anything like complicated. This puzzle here is just basically trying to pair up these different images according to what the theme of this first floor is. And once you make a selection as to which image you want to pair up this image with, it's going to remove that option and you can pair up the remaining images. And if you solve the puzzle, something will happen, but in this case, nothing did happen because I purposely didn't answer it correctly. So, yeah, that is basically what was implemented this week. I also did work on a background that probably took me about 2 days. The opening of the game has a pan down. That's, I think, let's check the coding again. 50, I think this is 50 seconds. 50-second pan down. So this background did take me longer than the other background since it is such a large image that was meant to be like panned down. And again, I am not somebody who's used to doing color backgrounds, so getting the hues and saturation for this scene was a challenge for me, and I am probably still gonna tweak it a little bit. Going in and seeing it in the game itself, I can see some parts that, again, when I imported it from Procreate, feel a little sloppy to me, so I think I might go in there and tweak some stuff. It looks like pretty good at 50%, but when you go into 100%, which is what you'll be seeing it in the game, you can see some parts of the edges like here where it's like, that's not right. This should be that darker shade of gray right to the edges of those leaves. And that kind of sloppy edge work, and see here, this brighter green should be going to the edges of these leaves, is the type of stuff that like my eye is just gonna go crazy with. So I need, and like the edges here are just like a little sloppy, and the edges here are sloppy, and I don't know why it does this, because I swear to you, when I'm working in Procreate, and you can see here too, where the layer, you can see like the blue of the layer going through that line for whatever reason. Again, it's just something that happens when you import Procreate into Procreate files to PSDs. For some reason, some of the brush strokes just don't translate completely accurately, and you get weird little edging things like this, edges of the paintbrush that don't match up what you have in Procreate. So I have to go in and probably with like a clone tool and just like clean this stuff up. So what I would probably do is just take like the clone stamp tool and just make a selection. I'll probably, sorry, first of all, I think I have all this, and then you can see where after I made all my color adjustments, it was a little too dark and a little too like undersaturated. And so I made this soft light, this yellow soft light, to kind of brighten the whole scene. I feel like I could probably still do something down here because this is the foreground and it's like one of the least saturated parts of the image. And I feel like as a composition, the foreground should have like the most saturated portion of the picture. That's generally, I think, how paintings work, is like the closer you get to the foreground, the more saturated. The farther back you go in, you can kind of see here, I tried to lower the saturation of this kind of far away, rocky, foresty part. I think that's generally how things are supposed to go. But my mind was like, oh, it's sand and rocks, and sand and rocks aren't particularly, like, I don't know, bright and saturated, so my mind wasn't really thinking about how I was going to make this foreground, like, pop more out. And so I still have to probably go through there and figure something out. But I'm going to merge these layers because I want to make sure that when I clone everything, I know what it's going to look like. In case I have to go back and actually just do like a brush. So sometimes the clone tool can be a little bit annoying because of the way it's sampling. For the most part, I can use the clone tool here, but at some point I might want to go in and just do, like, select a color to go in there and fix. But right now, probably the clone stamp is going to be adequate for most of this. Yeah, so that is what I'm going to have to go in and do a lot of, just around the edges of stuff, because when I see it at 100% and the background is the main focus of these scenes, it bothers me to see this sloppy quality to it. So I don't know if all my backgrounds will end up getting this polished treatment by the time that the GameJam is over. I might have to live with this kind of like I might have to live with this depending on how much time I have, because I do really want to get the kind of like the first pass of the dungeon. So I have this plan. You can kind of see this map, but this is going to be the first floor, and this is what I want to get done for the GameJam for a demo. And kind of when you go through the labyrinth for the first time and get to the farthest room, you will be with just your protagonist, and that final room is where she has the where she can summon her vassal, and kind of has like a, I guess you could call it a boss encounter. And I would like to get all these rooms set up this week, up until like kind of that boss encounter and summoning ritual. And then the week after that, I would like to get that boss encounter. I do have to create a new sprite for that, so I'd like to get that done. And then the week after that, I'd like to get kind of all the rooms done when you have your vassal with you. And that should still give me a couple weeks left over to not make my goals and have to scramble around. I would love to get this demo done a week before the end of GameJam, because I do have a virtual conference that I have to go to for work that is going to probably make it really hard for me to get much done. That week is probably just going to be really filled up for me. So that is where I'm looking at. And Zeil, the programmer I'm working with, has graciously offered, or I should say I asked and she graciously accepted to work on the map function, because what I had kind of as the map function was probably not very good, and So I believe she's going to be working on based on this design that I made. So I'm really, really happy and grateful for that as well. So that's where I am at the end of week 3, going into week 4. I'm starting to feel a little nervous, I'll be honest. But I'm excited to see the game progressing, and what I have is functional, so I feel like at worst case scenario I may not have like the entire first floor finished for the like demo, but I'll definitely have something that's playable that will give people a good idea of like my vision for the game. And I'm still going to be shooting for having this first floor complete, so wish me luck. And I'm feeling better now, so hopefully those couple days of being like bedridden will only motivate me to work harder this upcoming week. So good luck with your projects or anything that you may be working on, and don't forget to enjoy the process. Thanks for tuning in. Take care. Bye bye.